Hello one and all, Pipes here, checking in for development video number 6 of the abandoned cinema scene stroke 80s street scene. Now, the previous video we were looking at the texturing workflow using Substance Designer and Substance Painter, creating the booth partitions for the inside of the Viaduct pub. I'd like to thank everyone that's given me such great feedback from that video, and also to Algorithmic, who actually put me on their Twitter feed, which is awesome, and some of the feedback I got from the forums. I still stand by it. I still think that Painter and Substance Designer are just two fabulous applications, and due to that I've now moved on to the next asset. Now, I won't be doing a video for every asset, but I just wanted to show you some of the things that I've found in Substance Painter and what I've been working on in the past couple of days. So, as you can see in front of me here is Photoshop, and I've got a colour mask. If you look at the previous video, you'll understand what that colour mask is actually used for. It's used for separating out each of the materials. So this orange would donate the wooden panel. That actually changed. That's now wood. That was going to be metal for some back plates, which I'll show you in a second. This is ceramic. Because what I'm actually doing is the beer pumps. So this is the ceramic pumps, and then we've got some titanium there and yellow there for the brass. But these colours are just colours I've just picked at random, or just so that when we go into Substance Designer, it can just pick that one value and assign it to the correct part of the mesh. So what I did from there was I went into Substance Designer 4 and I generated this Albedo. Now, this is the UV map on top of it, which I got out of Maya, and as you can see, this is where the brass is and the titanium, and these different colours are the different colours of the actual handles. There's no UV in there because I added that on later. And this is the wood, and all this came out of sorry, they're the drip trays as well, you'll see in a second. This all came out of Substance Designer 4, and I've added in these badges for the actual front of the beer pumps themselves. So we got the Albedo map there, also got a Roughness map. Obviously this does change throughout the procedure of texturing up the asset, because a lot of it is trial and error. Like a lot of texturing, even old school, that was a lot of trial and error until you get it correct. So you can see the reflectance values here. That's quite rough because it's quite bright, such as these plastic drip trays are very rough indeed because it's the plastic, but still with a slight hint of a reflection, which I'll show you in a second. And also up here, very dark because this is the brass, and some of the outlines from the badges on the beer pumps, they're dark as well because they're also shiny. So the next thing was the metalness map. So as you can see, if it's white, it denotes that it's metal, and if it's black, it's a non-metal. So pretty straightforward there. That's just the UV overlay over the top. And then a normal map for the wood grain down here. It's very subtle indeed, but even looking that subtle within Photoshop, when it was in Substance Painter, it's quite strong, so I had to bring it down a little in there. And then, so what I did was I exported all those maps and went into Substance Painter, and here we can see the first pass art on these beer pumps. So because it's a modular asset, I only need really one drip tray. I'll be putting an alpha on the top for the holes. At the moment that just needs to be added into the alpha channel of the Albedo texture. And here we can see this is the titanium or metal, generic metal for the spout. And that's where the backplate was going to be metal, but I decided to do it wood because I think it should look a little bit better within the scene rather than a lot of metal on this part. Some of the metal screws, and then the wooden board, and then we've got the brass here. And if you look very closely, I've just added in some very slight surface detail into this brass, very slightly. You can just see a few of the knocks, which I can take down. Here we've got the ceramic, and again, if we just look very slightly, and you can see there's some slight colour variation where there's been some dirt and grime especially on the white you can see it more. And I don't know if you can see there's some slight dints. Obviously you're never really going to see this in the scene, but I know they're there, and it's all about these minute details, and it's so quick to do. It's not like it's taking any effort at all. Again, you can probably just see the dints there. And what I love about Substance Painter is that it's bringing back that artistic freedom from a procedural workflow that you'll find in Substance Designer. It's just brilliant. It just brings it all back instead of just relying on node-based changes, really. So again, you can just see slight variations in the roughness and also in the colour where there's dirt. I actually tried the fingerprint brush there. That's quite good. So but again, that will be very subtle, and just another variant there. And then we can see we've got the badges on the front. So they're quite shiny badges that you'll find behind, well, in front of the bar, and there is some slight variation within the roughness there as well to give it some interest again. And what I did with this one is actually went in and used the height and painted in the height just to bring that emblem out a little more. These are some of the beers from the 80s. Piper, my surname, so I thought I'd bring this one in as well. And again, just using the height channel, just painting on there with white just brings it up. We've got one which is a pub, a train, a locomotive style, because that's what's sort of the theme of the pub. And again, just another 80s beer there. So this again was extremely quick. I think it took more time to UV unwrap everything, lay everything out, than actually texturing it up. So if we just look at the layer stack, so if we go to the right hand side, those are the screws for the back panel, which are there, so you can just turn those on and off. We've also got pump sign dirt, so if I go back to here, I've been separating some things out. I like to work in a lot of layers so I get more control. There's slight dirt in there. If I turn that on and off, you can just see it. Now if you press C on the keyboard, you can see just the flat colour, which when doing a physical base render and working in that lighting system, you don't want hardly any ambient occlusion or cavity maps within the albedo texture. So again, Substance Painter is great for that. And the way that I just changed the variation on this was to go in, took the eyedropper, pick the red colour. Now one thing that I've noticed is that, for example, if I press M and go back to the material with all the materials on there properly rendered, if I use the eyedropper now, it opens up all the channels and it takes all the information from where the eyedropper is. Now it's caught me out a couple of times because sometimes I've just wanted to work on the actual diffuse colour. So what I've found the best thing to do is press C, go into the actual map that you want to edit, and then use the colour picker from there. And as you can see, it's gone to separate channels mode, and then you're only painting on the diffuse or the albedo map, which is a great help. Obviously, you can turn on and off the different layers and disable them here in the layer stack, which is great as well. But that was one thing that kind of caught me out. But just remember that if you want to actually sample the diffuse colour, I just press C. So here's the height map. So as you can see, I've just painted on white where I want the actual height to stand out. I think that's on height signs. Like I said, I like to work in a lot of layers and separate everything out. You can see it there in the 2D and also in the 3D view again. And that's all that is just painting different shades of grey, for example, so that'll be lower down than the actual bright white, and it's just as quick as that to create a really nice normal map from the height map that we're painting there. So if I press C again, here's the roughness. So these are quite dark. Sometimes I find that the roughness doesn't quite tally up in this window from the actual export, but obviously this is still in beta version, so as long as the exported maps are correct, that's all that matters really. So yeah, so that's more rough because it's white, and then obviously the brighter it is, the darker it will be. But we've got variation in there because this has got some surface dirt, so there's a slight variation. Now remember that you can also in Photoshop edit these further, so if you do want to tone things down and you don't want to do it in Painter, you can do it in Photoshop. So press C again, so that's our metallic map. Now this is one of the strange things that's happening. As you can see, I've imported in the metalness map and there's no darkness there, but for some reason I'm getting sort of this grey shade. I was trying to have a look and see if there's any difference, but when it exports out, it does export out correctly, so I'm not too worried about that. Perhaps there's a workaround, I'm not sure, but again, as I say, it's in beta, so that's fair enough. Yeah, so if press C, we get back to our diffuse albedo map. Press M, and there we are. Once again, it's just so quick, so easy to texture in here. And if you need to do any further overlays, like we say, you can do that in Photoshop anyway. So just to show you that within the environments, how this looks in different lighting setups, let's bring in the elevator scene. Yeah, looks quite consistent with the lighting. And as you can see, if I do press C, I've just gone in with the paint spray brush. In fact, I went to the paint spray brush and created a custom one by right clicking on here and going save brush once I'd done some settings. And now I have a custom spray brush down here. I just reduced the flow a little, and a couple of other parameters which you'll find over here. And I can just go to that nice and quickly. And what I did was I sampled out the yellow colour, which was the base, and then just going in here, just brought down some different variations in tone, and just sprayed it straight onto the model. And that way, when we go back to the material mode, we can see that instead of just being the uniform bright texture, you get some kind of variation where there will have been some dirt and slight scratches, and you've got a little dulling within the reflection, just to give it some variety and believability. And then when we do look at the drip tray down here, there's no backface culling option, but that's not a great worry. Just gone in and slightly scratched up some of the plastic. And like with the plastic, it is dull, but there is a slight sheen to it. I had a look at some reference. As I always say, look at as much reference as you can, and you can see there's a slight sheen to that. If you would just want to change the roughness, you can just go down here and just turn on the roughness channel, turn off diffuse, and then you could go in there, you could paint a different kind of roughness. So that would be extremely rough, that would be extremely shiny, so you could pick a different value and just add on some different details. I think we can see that in the roughness. Yeah, it's not quite showing up. Trust me, there is some difference. Yeah, it's probably on my other file, but there is a slight variation within the plastic. Okay, back to material mode. So yeah, I mean, once again, there is difference in the roughness within this metal. It's yeah, there we go, that's better. Yeah, you can see the difference in the roughness, where it'll be a little more blurred where it's white and more shiny where it's darker. So you can get a bit more difference and variation, and even there I've got some very light scratches. And I also used an anisotropic shader node within Substance Designer 4 to create those lines, so it looks like they're kind of like mill lines. Might be a little over the top, it might need toning down, or even making a little smaller, but I'm quite happy at the minute for a first pass art on this asset. Now I just wanted to show you some of the actual exported textures from this asset taken out of Substance Painter. Now normally what happens is, at the moment, if you've downloaded the trial, it's actually 50% off at the moment if you purchase the full version, because within the trial you can't actually export any of the maps, which is fair enough. You get a taster of how things work, but you can't export out the maps. So I'd highly advise to get yourself a a full application version of this on Steam or from Algorithmic's website. So what happens is, if we go here and you go export channels, if you haven't paid and using the trial, it'll say whoops, you can't export your documents unless you pay. And then once you have paid, you'll get this dialog box here, and you can export the diffuse, height, roughness, metallic, and the normal map. So you export those out. I've exported those at 2K. And if we look here in Photoshop, so this is the Substance Designer 4 Albedo map that we took out before, and then put that into Substance Painter. And here are the ones that are the actual export. Now, as you can see, it blurs out around the edges, so that if you don't have any mip-map issues. So if you zoom out from the asset, you don't get any black lines where it's starting to bleed. So that's great. That gives you a nice bit of padding around there. As you can see, there's also no lighting information, so that's spot on for the Albedo map. Here's a metallic, so those are the screws, so yep, they're metal, so they're white. And when I was showing you in the video, it was showing up quite grey. As you can see in the export, it's fine. So it is black and white. White for metal, black for non-metals. And here's the normal map. That was generated from the actual height map, or you could take the height map and generate another one yourself in Nold or some other application that you may be using. And here's the roughness map. So again, a little bit of padding there, and it's looks fine. So from there, we could go in and do some further tweaks and edits to each of these maps, or go back into Substance Painter and tweak something in there, re-export out. Super fast, and you know that the maps that you're actually generating are correct because you've already seen them within the PBR viewer. So yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for all the great comments. If you subscribe to me, that's awesome. My portfolio is at www.rpiper.co.uk, which will be updating once this scene is complete. And I'd be interested to see what other projects other people are doing, and if you've got any further tips for Substance Designer or Substance Painter or any program at all. Hopefully it won't be too long before I do the next video, but like I say, I'm not going to do a video for every asset. But if I do come across something, or after I've created quite a few of the assets, I'll do another video, and I'll keep in touch. So thank you again for watching, and thank you everyone for the great comments. Thank you, goodbye.